What up, what up, what up? Welcome to Shawn and Maya in the morning on this Hump Day edition. Man, I am fired up. Man, there's a lot going on and a lot to talk about. Guys, we're coming to you from our Sports Zone Chicago virtual studios. I'm your boy, the Superback Sean Sierra, and can't wait to get excited. But let's bring in the team. My girl. Here she is. I missed her. Where you been? The Maldives? Dominican Republic? Where you been? Guys, say what's up to my girl, the co-host, my co-pilot in this insanity, the one and only Maya Akai. What up, Maya?
Hey, everybody. Where have I been? I have been out orchestrating a revolution. That's where I've been.
Now you're an orchestrator. Did you have your
not a detractor, not a deflector. I am not part of that group. Even though, FYI, if your nickname was Antifa, that's kind of fly. Just saying. No, hey, we're back in the Sports Zone Chicago virtual studio, which is going to open up so many different ways that we do things. So I'm super, super excited. Just now that things have kind of opened back up, more sports conversation, it seemed like the right time for me to be more present in the conversation. So missed you guys.
We missed you too. Stop acting crazy. Well, listen, guys. Listen, if you're watching this on Facebook Live, well, then I guess you found us on Facebook. Now, you can also tweet the show. You can tweet us at SM_mornings or at Sports Zone Shy. That's CHI, at Sports Zone Shy. Now, if you want to follow me, just me personally online, want to know what I did?
What'd you do?
Let me tell you what I did. Want to know what I did?
What'd you do?
Let me tell you what I did. I made it nice and easy for you folks. Nice and easy. One handle for Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, the Snapper. All one handle at the Sean Sierra. And you see her, I chimed her in early because we missed her so much. Where can they find you, Maya, online?
See, here's the thing you got to love about technology. Where can you find me? Right there on the screen. You can find me on Facebook and Twitter at the Sports Chica. You no longer have to be like, how I'm spelling all that. And of course, though I didn't put it on there, you can find me at Instagram, Maya_Akai. I'm changing up a little bit. So yes, that's how you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and IG.
We want to say what's up to our Puerto Rican Swiss Army knife himself, Ivan Vargas. Ivan, what's up, Papa? How are you?
What's going on, guys? Good morning.
Top of the morning to you.
Top of the morning to you guys.
How you doing?
I'm good. I hope you guys are staying safe. Hope hope all's well.
So yes,
it is.
It
is
good.
I am. So listen, guys, we got a great show for you, but we need you to interact with us today. So we need you to give us your time and your attention and leave a comment. Leave a comment or question right there on the post. We'll have the phone system up again soon, but leave a question or comment right there on the post, and we will integrate that in the show because we want to hear your idea. There's a lot to talk about, and we definitely need to hear your opinions, your views, and we want to discuss them as well. Now, guys, actually, I almost jumped the gun. Guys, we got a great show for you, and I was not bullseye when I said that, guys. You know how it is. Man, Lauren Cox, our guy.
Oh, Lauren.
Yes, Lauren Cox from the Lockdown Bears podcast. He also works for NBC Sports Chicago as well. He's going to call in at 10 o'clock, and he's going to have a lot of interesting ideas about this Chicago Bears team. For one, we're going to ask him about what the NFL is ruling about all teams having to hold their training camps at their own facility because the Bears were going to start this year anyway, but they had been in Bourbonnais for the last 15 years or so. Mm-hmm. Cowboys usually go to Oxnard, California for theirs.
Right.
So some other teams venture away from the facility, which is a good money-making thing for them and stuff like that. But NFL said, no, you know what? Keep it at your facilities. So we're going to talk to him about that. We're going to talk to him about Cole Kmet, the new tight end. And, of course, the 800-pound gorilla in the room. You're going to talk about Mitch Trubisky and Nick Foles.
We wish he was an 800-pound gorilla in the room because then we might be working with something. Just saying.
So we're going to talk to him about the quarterback controversy that the Bears are going to have. So,
right.
So that's our show, 10 o'clock. Lauren Cox. We have a good session ready for that. Segment ready there. Well, guys, you know how we do. The first segment of every show is called Top of the Morning to you. And these are the hot topics of the night before or just some sports in general. And boy, oh boy, do we have some doozies. Let's see, which way do we go? Where do we start?
Where do we start with all this?
You know how we do.
This
is how we do. The NFL. I just mentioned it earlier. Top of the morning topics. The NFL has told all teams that they will hold their training camp at their facilities. I get it. It makes the Bears leaving Bourbonnais, or Bourbonnais as we used to call it, much more palatable this year in light of the pandemic. I was butthurt about it, man. I was really mad. I really wanted I love the interaction that you have, that the players have with the fans, and the fans have with the players, because of the proximity that you are to the players. I was really salty about it. But in light of situations like this, I get it, I understand it, but it still sucks.
I mean, I'm going to have to agree with you on this, Shawn, that definitely it lets the Bears off the hook with the fact that they already had made the decision to not return to Bourbonnais, so to speak. And it left a lot of people divided about it. Like, it was like, okay, but you're kind of leaving the city of Bourbon high and dry, because they really had built generating revenue out of when the Bears were coming down to do the camp. So that was part of the sticking point. If they would have kind of had an exit plan that said, this will be our final year in Bourbonnais, out of fairness, that would have been the right thing to do. But now, with this being said, what happened obviously with COVID-19, and there being extra layers of safeties and precautions that have to be taken, it makes sense, obviously, now that they have to go back to their facility anyways. But what's interesting is even the way that they were going to orchestrate training camp and integrate fans into it, that still has to be tabled. So, to be honest, from a standpoint of revenue generation, that piece is not there for them either, because from a safety standpoint, bringing in, obviously, there's discussion about not having large groups of people together. So hence, letting fans come in for the fan experience is going to have to be absent this season as well. So even for the Bears, they're going back to their facility, but for them, there's not really like, they're saving, I guess, even more money technically, because you know what? Now they don't have to deal with doing anything specifically to work with the fans.
Yeah, it's different. Times are different. It's weird for everybody, and it's going to be most likely a 1-year deal. Okay. Everything hopefully should be back to normal by next season. But in the meantime, we have to deal with this, and there probably aren't going to be any fans. And then also the question is, what's going to happen even to us, the media? Like, if we for the credentialed media, are they going to be allowed in, downstairs at the Hallis Hall, the meeting room? I mean, that's still a big deal if how they want to proceed, how the NFL is going to proceed. So we're going to see how it plays out.
I definitely feel that you can accommodate the media. To me, that part, you can accommodate the media. And I say that piece because it's the kind of situation where the media isn't like, 500, 600, 700 people. So you can control how many people the media bring in. Precautions like taking temperatures are there. Signing, some people make you sign waivers about saying that, you will not enter the facility if, you're exhibiting any types of symptoms. Those are things that are already happening on the outside with just other organizations and corporations to ensure safety. So to me, you will not have to ixnay the media, because it is a smaller group of people that you're allowing into the facility. You're just going to put those things in, like, obviously, if you think you're sick, asymptomatic, please do not send someone from your media. Everyone will get a temperature check, which might add a little bit more time in getting people into the facility, but you're not talking about 500 people. You're talking maybe like 50, 60, 70 people, and that's even higher. They can say every media outlet, honestly, is only going to get to maybe, let's say, bring in 2 to 3 people, which makes it so much more manageable for them in regards to the safety aspect. Yeah,
and obviously safety is the number one concern, and hopefully that those measures are taken, because that would really be horrible to have just a small number of media members and someone, God forbid, someone get the virus at that point, and then pretty much everyone would have been exposed who was there. So,
well, the risk is going to be there, Shawn.
Yeah,
the risk is going to be there, because what we're seeing more of now, and this is me being kind of like really at the ground zero part of being in an emergency department, is you're seeing more people that are asymptomatic, which means not exhibiting a fever. A fever is not indicative that you do or don't have it. Because remember, a fever can be connected to the cold, the flu, just any type of viral type of infection. But that's one of the things they lead with. So you could have a regular temperature, or what could be a very low grade temperature, because some people will run low grade temperatures, and it doesn't mean that you have COVID-19. Or you could totally not have a temperature at all and have COVID-19 because you don't have shortness of breath, the cough, fatigue, or the temperature. So understand this. This still is coming with risk, and I don't think most people understand that. That part of what the CDC released at one point is they talked about that at least 50% of people that they had seen thus far were asymptomatic, and that was in the midst of the pandemic. So just know this still comes with a certain amount of risk. So there's going to probably be a situation where they may ask certain people to wear face masks, if they're interviewing players, which will look so. Now that's when they'll be like, where are we right now? It'll be interesting. They may even require, but by the way, this does not make you exempt, that you don't send someone to the facility that has not been previously tested. But here's the problem. You could test negative one day and still be exposed and still not know from 7 to maybe 10 days that you've contracted COVID-19. It is the most unique type of virus we've ever dealt with in a very long time outside the Spanish flu.
That was what, 1918?
1918.
Isn't it the Black Sox scandal as well?
Well, you know what's interesting about the Spanish flu? It raged for 2 years before they could get it under control. Now, mind you, you're talking.
Why don't they just pass it around on social media and tell you how to?
Well, because you got to remember, we're talking about a time when we didn't have nearly the amount of resources like we have now, so everybody was real touchy-feely, and not necessarily as probably as many resources as being as sanitary. I'm not saying people were dirty in the early 1900s, but let's be honest, we've come a long way.
Yeah, a little bit.
It raged for 2 years before they were able to get it under control.
That's insane. You know what? And this just came across the wire as well. In conjunction with that, the NFL sent out a memo to all 32 teams yesterday.
Did you get the memo?
Was that in the memo? I didn't get it.
I didn't get that. Was I supposed to get that? I was left off the memo.
Where are those TPS reports?
I didn't get that email. Apparently, I didn't get that email. No, anyways.
Well, the NFL sent a memo to all teams informing them that they will not be allowed to hold joint practices. This was a practice that, no pun intended, that had been pretty popular in the last couple of years, where two teams would practice for 2 or 3 days together, just to kind of get it, just something that's not beating up the same old guys. You know what I mean? To get fresh bodies and get a little different look, a little different view on the actual skill set of guys. Because once you go against the same person, this is just speaking from experience. Once you go from against the same person 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 days or a week or 2 weeks, you understand their moves. You know their moves. You know their counter moves. You know their strengths. You know their weaknesses. You can exploit it, especially if one of their weaknesses is one of your strengths, and it can make you look much better than you really are, or it can make you look much worse than you really are. Okay, but now when you get somebody else who has a different skill set, a different body type, different game style of play, now you can really see the ability of players, because it's a different thing. So
you're right. That's a huge, those pieces definitely were, I think, integral in preparing for the regular season. So that to me can have some form of impact, because which it sounds like you're saying to me is you're kind of losing the opportunity to be able to kind of get a better perspective of where certain players are based on light competition, not hardcore. So that element of evaluation that they could use for outside the practice squad is now gone. I think that piece is huge, and we may be talking about that down the road, which will be funny because it'll be totally an embellishment. Well, the reason the Bears really did suck is because we didn't get to do those inter-squad practices. So Mitch didn't get no real pressure from nobody else, right? I'm joking, but somebody will pull that one out and say that was a reason why there was an issue down the road. But interesting. But you know what though? It does make sense. It makes sense to me.
Yeah, that's what the football is about. It's film. So the more film you get on a person, the more you can see what it is, their skill set and how it relates to other people. When you're just constantly going against the same guy or the same 2 or 3 guys, you get to know their moves. You get very comfortable on how to make yourself look good, as opposed to just various people.
It's interesting you talk about film, because I would like to believe that, given how much things are changing, that there's going to be that possibility that there's going to be a stronger push from every organization for every player. I need you to get really acquainted with using your film. We give you that tablet for a reason, and it's not for you to be scrolling Instagram and getting stuff in your DMs. I actually need you to watch film on that, for real.
Have Mug stay out your DMs.
I did not give you that Surface Pro, because that's one of the NFL sponsors, I think.
Yeah.
I did not give you the Surface Pro to be checking your Twitter and your IG for your DM hit-ups. So I do believe that film should be a part that will become even more integral to prepare a lot of players to be better at what they're doing.
It should be. So we're going to see how that plays out. Well, the next top of the morning topic, Major League Baseball has come back with their proposal. Okay, so Major League Baseball proposed an 80-game season to begin with, and then the Players Association, they returned serve and said, nope, we want a 114-game season. because remember they only agreed to the prorated salary. So if you play half the games, you get half your salary. The owners were talking about, no, we'll give you a 56 game season or 80 game season, but we want revenue sharing.
Mm-hmm.
But the owners were doing and saying, well, but we're not going to tell you how much we make. So you just gotta trust us. Yeah, okay. And then so now the players' union has come back and said, nah, hold on, player. They've come back. After the 114 game proposal from the players, the owners said, hey, listen, they're about to propose a 50 to 60 game schedule. Now it's less than 80, with the players getting their prorated salary. So now you're not even getting half your salary. You're going to get a third of your salary. It's just going to keep going down and down and down. This is just ridiculous by the owners.
It's here comes cream. Cash rules everything around me. I mean, that's just what this comes down to. I mean, we should have known at the end of the day, this was going to get down to dollars. Holla. Anyways, me, Maya loves to sing. See, I'm back, right?
Bill, y'all.
I'm back, y'all, because I'm singing again. I'm always singing stuff, So we already knew that, at first it was like, whoa, the MLB season isn't back. But we knew eventually the conversation about money was going to affect the outcomes of this for the players, as well as obviously for the owners. So this haggling piece does not surprise me. So here's real talk, because I'm ready for baseball. In fact, that's the only thing I'm really missing. Seriously, I'm so desperate for this like baseball and to see my Sox play because we were waiting for this season. I have actually bought some Goose Island Golden Ale just because it was on a Sox can. It was all right. Anyways, the can is dope though. By the way, the can is dope.
I saw that the other day. I'm like, look at Maya.
I'll save one of the 12. But anyways, if it takes prorating, with things, if this is what it takes to get baseball back on track because they want to argue about money, then to me, honestly, it seems like the fair thing to do. Correct? I mean, I understand it's millions of dollars, but it's an entertainment for us, but it's a business for others. So we just want to see baseball. So, but at the same time, there's too much money that's generated for us to think that this is just going to go just to play. Unfortunately, fans, you're going to see how much you're valued at this point just because it's about money. Everything's about money. I don't care what sport it is. So to me, if it means prorating the season down to 50 or 60 games, because dollar-wise, that's what it comes out to be, and it works for everybody, then so be it. I just want to see baseball. Now, mind you, I don't expect for players to be okay with that. But at the same time, you don't want to pay cut what's fair. So what's the only fair thing to do, Shawn? Don't you think the only real fair thing to do is to then say, we're going to just go ahead, prorate the season and pay you based on per game what that contract would look like per game? Does that not seem fair?
It seems like the owners they're doing a great job of negotiating. And this is all it is negotiating back and forth, in Seinfeld, negotiating, like George Costanza said. It's, you know what? The owner started off with 80 games. They wanted 80 games, and players were like, oh, God, no. So the owner said, okay, fine. So for them to get their 80 games, they came back with something more drastic, 50 to 60 games, but you get your prorated salary. So now, you know what? They're in a good position for the players union to accept. Okay, well, now we're going to get the 80 game schedule. So now I'm going to get half of my salary, and now at least I can make do, because we've talked about this before. There are a lot of athletes who still live, believe it or not, paycheck to paycheck, and because you have more expenses, you have more people to deal with, you have more people that you usually have to that you're responsible for. Your lifestyle is different, so a lot of times there are, believe it or not, a lot of players who still live paycheck to paycheck. So this would give them more actual dollars.
Right.
Okay. And I'm not even talking about the full 80%, 40%, just actual dollars of half of 50% of your contract. So it looks like the owners they're in a good position, because now the players are saying, wait a minute, they're backing up. Can we revisit that 80 game schedule? So if that works, then the owners have done a great job of negotiating, get what they wanted initially.
I'm going to play the devil's advocate on this, and people be like, Maya, you crazy, but real said and done, when it's really all said and done, we have to take into consideration that the owners are the one that own the team. They're the ones that make the financial investment to make this happen. As fans, we tend to want to feel that there should be more autonomy for the players. I always feel differently about that, because I own a business, and I think about all the things I did to build my business up to where it is, the money I had to invest, the time and energy, all those things. So it's always great to find a good employee, and I want to compensate them accordingly to make sure they know I value what they do for me. But it doesn't mean I'm going to turn the farm over to you because you feel like, well, I'm the best employee that you have, which means I should decide. No, you shouldn't decide nothing, because at the end of the day, this is my entity. Now, there's always going to be division on this because you're going to have people like, Maya, that's crazy. No, it's not, because the owners made the financial investment to acquire the team and spent millions, and they didn't do it for entertainment. They did it to make dollars. So my thing is that sometimes we need to step outside the idea of that's so unfair to the players about, as long as they're getting paid their fair cut, make the adjustments that you need to make. That's just kind of how I feel about that. And I think the owners, like you said, are in a very pivotal and good position. Here's one thing that's not going to be good for baseball. This is kind of like not being on a strike because you are not playing because you can't play. You know what I mean? But baseball cannot afford to get to a position where they started to get ticky-tacky, because the last strike that happened was not good for the comeback for baseball. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it only got saved because of steroid users McGuire and Sosa, and boy, it got saved in a big way. And yes. I'm going to disagree with you to a point, Maya, because I hear you. I hear your point about it's your financial, from a business perspective, but also a lot of the products that you use aren't generating millions of dollars and taking your think about the players. How many Mike Trout jerseys are sold? How many people come just to see Mike Trout? How many people buy games because they want to be Mike Trout or Bryce Harper or Nolan Arenado or Manny Machado? These guys, they bring the value to this.
See, I hear you, Shawn, but this is like that chicken, the chicken, the egg, that horse, the cart. Because here's the problem with this. And I get what you're saying, and I think it's fair. But here's where you have to consider what you just said. People wear the jerseys of big name athletes. So Trout, Machado, Harper, Kershaw, you just go down the list, whoever it is. But remember, the reason that you wear that jersey is at some point they stepped on the field that had my product's name on it. The Dodgers, the Yankees, the Sox, the Cubs, the Astros. So you donned my jersey that took you from being an obsolete player that no one knew maybe playing in the Caribbean League or college, and I elevated you. So hence, I'm sorry, part of your fame is tied to my brand. But on the flip side of this, if you are that marketable, you're able then to go out and sign contracts with Adidas, Nike, everybody else that I get no cut of. So you do get a compensation to be marketable beyond anything I'm ever going to touch. So this is one of those things to me that's a complicated conversation, because I hear what you're saying, but Harper, Machado, they all can brand themselves outside of my brand and still make money off of what they do for me. So streams of income are interesting in this situation. I'm just saying.
And vice versa, streams of income for the owners that they get have nothing to do with the players. So TV revenue.
Let me ask you a question. If there was no team, would there be players?
No. I mean, I think this is hand in hand. But I think the owners.
The game created the need for players, though. The name created the need for players. The game then got branded by teams. People used to be bigger into teams before they were players, Shawn. That player shift has been a shift in that. But it doesn't mean as an owner, when I go spend millions or billions of dollars to acquire a team, it doesn't mean I'm going to give it up because people love you. My job is to make people love you, because when people love you, they want more of me. So it's a symbiotic relationship.
It is, and that's why I think the players. I think a 50%. Depending on what the split is, like the players need their cut, because again, if you just take Mike Trout Mike Trout, Bryce Harper, Aaron Arenado, Manny Machado, take top 10 big name players out. Well, all of a sudden the money that you make as an owner and revenue sharing from jersey sales, that's down. Ticket sales down. Okay, people, because unless you're like the Yankees, because they're sold out damn near every game. But other places like the other teams, that affects your income. Affects your income. So I say that you know what, I just think that they need to get the cut. I'm okay with, even if it's just 1 year, owner saying, look, here's the deal. I'll give you more than you should have this year, because I know next year, first of all, builds goodwill between you and I, me and the player. But also what happens is, that gets circulated around the league. Wow, look what the owners did. Look what the owners did. All right, they did this. It builds trust. It builds respect. It builds a mutual admiration for, okay, this is what they did for us in this 1 year. Now, when it comes time for something else, maybe we can concede a little more, on our end moving forward. So there's got to be give and take on both parts.
Oh,
I'm not seeing as much as I would like.
I agree. But like I said, because they have a very symbiotic relationship, it's hard for them to realize that they are very intertwined. There is not one without the other, because the popularity of individual players you've seen a shift in every sport that way, not just baseball, but basketball, hockey, football. There's been a shift that it used to be team. The only sports that are still like that to me are college. People still love their college team. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That shift, because the players come and go. You know what I mean? You may still love a player, but I'm always going to be a Hawkeye. You might ask me who on the team. I'm like, I don't know. I'm just all about Hawkeyes, but that's what I'm saying. So, but pro sports are different. The popularity and the marketability of players, to be honest, is equally as important as the team is. And this is what I think they need to begin to understand this, because they're haggling. And you know what? Here's the other thing too. The longer they haggle, Shawn, the more it becomes an issue, because they're going to be sharing TV time with the NBA, the NHL. All of a sudden, we're going to be in a position, we went from being in high drought and dry, for real, with nothing to watch in sports, to all of a sudden, we're going to literally have a bunch of stuff to watch. Now, mind you, baseball will look and feel different to us, because if you only do a 50 or 60 game season, it means every game counts. Every game counts in getting you into the playoffs, which all of a sudden, if you're a White Sox fan, you're like, oh my God.
Yeah, we are fired up about that
all
stuff.
Of a sudden, I was listening to the intro with Joe Buck, and I was like, this feels like it's just about to happen again. I don't know. Maybe I'm just hyping myself up a little bit. But
hey, you know what? That's fine. We can do that. It's okay.
But they're now in competition for time. So my thing is, do you want to keep haggling and miss out on a whole season of baseball? Because as this clock keeps ticking, they're losing time that they should be on the field playing right now. Bottom line.
They are. Listen, we got to take a quick break, and on the other side of the break, we have more top of the morning topics, guys. So don't go anywhere, folks. Keep it locked right here. Shawn and Maya in the morning on Sports Zone Chicago.
ESPN Tuesday has more on the NBA's efforts to create a plan to return to action.
Regular season games, play-in games, and then the playoffs, and the last possible date that teams have been now informed of for the NBA Finals. Game 7 would be on that October 12th, and teams are now planning to be in Orlando in July, start at their own practice facilities, and then move down for a more formal training camp later in July with that July 31 tip-off in Orlando.
22 teams would play under the proposal at Disney's Wide World of Sports complex. The NBA Board of Governors expected to approve the proposal this Thursday. No monthly payments for 90 days, 0% APR for 84 months. Details at Jeep.com. The Sports Flash is driven by Jeep. Chuck Sanders, 1330, 95.9 The Zone.
We're here to tell you about Boost Mobile's new upgraded network.
That's right. Stronger signal, faster speeds, and more coverage.
So now you can get everything you want faster, like Pitbull's music.
No, the new upgraded network means you can download music faster than ever before. It doesn't mean that it will make Pitbull songs faster.
Oh, so this isn't the song.
No, this is the song.
Well, this is embarrassing.
Step up with Boost Mobile's new upgraded network. Stronger signal, faster speeds, more coverage than before. Switch and get 4 unlimited lines for $25 per line per month and 4 free LG K51 phones. Access to upgraded network requires compatible device. New customers only. 4-line offer requires at least 1 port and activation from eligible carrier. Free phone limited to 1 per line while supplies last. Customers using more than 35 gigabytes of data during billing cycle may be deprioritized during times of congestion. Offers and coverage not available everywhere. Additional terms and restrictions apply. See boostmobile.com or retailer for full details.
Well, listen, folks, we're back here on Shawn and Maya in the morning. And in our next topic, top of the morning topic, kind of a sad one. Okay.
Presents the Sports Flash, driven by
Jeep on
1330 and 95.9 The Zone.
There we go. Sorry, what the heck happened there, Papa? But the next top of the morning topic, again, it's a little sad one, and it's one that, Wes Unsel. Wes Unsel from the Washington Bullets. Yep, they used to be called Bullets until DC was named the murder capital of the world for like 10 years in a row. They changed their name.
They can go back now because we didn't took over that in Chicago.
Yeah, we did. Ain't that the truth? Ain't that the truth? But Wes Unsel passed away the other day at the age of 74. This is a guy that I remember playing. He was big power guy, big power center. He's one of the 50 best players of all time, and it's sad. It's sad when someone like that dies. It's crazy because, again, I remember watching him. I know this sounds weird, but one of the things, he had like one of the biggest asses around, and he used it to maneuver and to score.
Oh?
I mean, like to get around. And I know.
Whoa.
Like
Biggest asses in scoring. But no,
I'm
but I mean,
like, what? Oh,
this is right?
what's Shaggy?
Is this still a sports joke?
Right.
Oh,
It's
this is
like,
really
I
S&M
know it's S&M, but the morning part has fallen off somehow. What is really going on here? Ivan, you need to pull Shawn back. I think he's fallen off.
I'm gonna talk about Boom Shakalaka.
Right.
It threw me off this morning. I'm like, whoa.
That one, I'm
You gotta
like,
keep you on your toes,
here's
man.
like, I got to go back and Google him because remember that was a little bit ahead of my time necessarily. Now I got to go back and like look at him, and I'm looking at him for all the wrong reasons. But you didn't said that now, so now I got to go look. I got to go look now. That's it. There's no ifs, buts, and ands about it. So we've got obviously the loss, but I mean, 74 years old. We all know that. Oh my God! Now everybody is chiming in on it. This is insane. This is absolutely insane.
Oh man, it's like I don't know. You threw me. I was trying to do something over here, and like I looked up, like what?
John Neal, biggest asses in scoring. You know what? You stop that. Stop playing. Stop playing. But no, I'm serious. But now I got to go back and I got to look at this because I was young, and I do remember him. I'll be honest. When you're younger and you see people play, you don't necessarily capture everything. Like obviously I did, like in the Jordan era. So I definitely have to go back, capture it, pay attention. Look back at it. I don't know. This is wrong. This man has passed away, and now Shawn has made a very inappropriate joke.
NBA legend we're talking about.
Right, and now I have really gone off the rails because he made a comment that totally threw me off my square. May you rest in peace,
Yes.
Wes. But yeah, I read that and I was like, for a minute I had to think about it. I was like, oh God, because you know how you forget about, there are so many people that have played the game that were so instrumental. And, you forget about them because the list is so long. Shawn, I'm gonna tell you what, the universe didn't like that comment you made. That's why they booted your ass off and said, Shawn, we are paying respects to a legend. And you talking about features that should not be talked about that has distracted Maya now. May Wes rest in peace.
Wait.
Oh,
Listen,
Lara. Oh, they're coming at you. Oh, that's funny. Armando Lara said, ask Shawn how his mother knew which player he was on the field.
She was, she was able to tell by my number. What else? No, true story. My mom that was one of the things she said. She goes, I could always find Shawn on the field because of his big butt. I was like, thanks, Mom.
He was like Bookman. He was like Bookman.
I had a big old butt, and it was especially back then. It stood out. There weren't as many kids with big butts at all, and I was, yeah.
There goes that minority boy over there. That's
he is
right there. He might be a little light, but guess
She's
what?
like, that's my baby.
You can find him right there. There's Shawn. No, you know what? Right now, Wes is probably laughing. He's probably like, you know what? I'm glad people can remember me in such a good way, but yet celebrate who I was as a legend. So yes.
Yeah, he was. He was the one of the 50 all-time best players. He was the MVP back in 1969. He was a 5-time All-Star, and he was part of the only championship team that the Washington Wizards ever had. So he's definitely going to be missed. And like I said, I just remember him for watching him because back then you got to remember it was still a centers league. Growing up, the NBA was a centers league, and everything went through the big man. And so when you watch guys, you watch how they play and how they maneuvered. Being a sports freak, I was into sports. I'm talking like 5 or 6 or 7. And
we were young,
baseball, yeah.
And
watching him, I just remembered him. And one of the reasons I really remember him is he looked like one of the guys that worked at my mom's school, and that's why I thought, and that's why I was very.
You thought he had double life, like Mom. What are you not telling me?
Yeah, You know,
Wow,
like
you're not
isn't he a security guard over here at the school? But no, he.
No, Sean, all black people don't look alike. No, I'm just kidding. I'm in a rare form today. I've been gone too
I
long.
see. I know you have.
I can say that because I'm a black person. So I can say it. Okay. Now, if you white, don't say that because it's gonna get you in trouble. Just saying. Anyways, so yes, may Wes Unsel rest in peace. You know, I had to go back and look him up. I was like, I know the name, but I couldn't remember everything about his history. You know.
Oh, okay,
so,
yeah.
But yeah, so may he rest in peace. He's on the list of one of the greatest. So, and he was definitely that guy that had a presence. When you talk about big men, like people won't say his name because they probably don't remember him, but literally he had that type of presence. So
He did. Well, the next top of the morning topic, the Bears, Chicago Bears. You know, I love football and I can talk football 24/7, 365 if you let me. But the Bears paused activities yesterday to support Black Tuesday. Matt Nagy put hit the pause button on practices and meetings to support Blackout Tuesday, which was held yesterday in regards to the murder of George Floyd. Your thoughts on the Bears as an organization, at least for one day, hitting pause?
I'm the kind of person that I pay attention to things not just in the moment, but I look at the timeline of things. Now, if we roll this back, when Colin Kaepernick took a knee, and FYI, folks, this is exactly why he took a knee. The policing of black and brown faces, how it's not just, and it's a problem that he wanted to deal with. And if maybe back then we'd addressed it, we may not be here right now. If we started having conversations within our communities about how black and brown faces are policed, this may not have even happened. But because people deflected from what he said and made it about veterans and it was an anthem protest, guess what? And Colin Kaepernick never brought it back center, which always annoyed me. We never had the conversation. Though a few organizations to the NFL did some partnership work with their local police departments, the Bears were one, but they didn't make a big deal out of it. There was an initiative the NFL actually had. Tampa Bay did it. Several teams kind of did some fluff work, so to speak. Let's fluff it up, and appease people. But generally speaking, there was a lot of dissension. Remember, some players didn't want to take a knee. Some players thought it was okay. Locker rooms were split over this. And organizations really didn't want to take a stand necessarily. And here we are all of a sudden, because people are tearing it up, like ripping it up, which they shouldn't be like this. But you know what? It is because people are rioting and looting besides just the protesting. And it's all kinds of people. Here's the difference. You don't have black people just holding signs and looting and rioting. You have people from all, walks of life, colors, races, genders supporting this. Here's if you want to become a student of history, you need to understand. We are now looking at two things that have affected why you see more people who are not black people or brown people supporting Black Lives Matter and doing Black Tuesday. One, the Occupy movement. The Occupy movement really had nothing necessarily to do with, black and brown faces could participate, but it was really more, I'll be honest, don't get upset. It was more of a white person's movement, though we knew what they were talking about. We was like, well, we've been dealing with injustice for a hot minute, so we've been occupied for a long time. Then you had the Me Too movement come out. And now we have a revisit of Black Lives Matters. And all of a sudden you've got people who weren't necessarily supporting before totally on board and doing things like Black Tuesday, which means the consciousness has been raised in this country. And now NFL teams and other types of individuals feel more comfortable being supportive of the cause because the people have spoken and said, even though they've taken stuff from Nike and Apple, don't really mean they're down with the cause, but it looks like that a little bit. So with that being said, organizations, I do believe like the Bears, feel comfortable being involved because the people, their fans, are involved. And the voice of people who are far left are not resonating right now. Notice you haven't seen too many left people say too much of nothing. Seriously. Because somebody might show up at your house if you say too much, because that's the climate. Now, I'm not wishing that on anybody, but that's the climate we're in right now. People are angry. They're very, very angry at this point. So I'm not surprised that organizations feel more comfortable taking a stance with it because more people are taking a stance with it, a broader base of people, not just one group of people per se.
Yeah, George McCaskey issued a statement on behalf of the Bears Monday night, and he was saying, quote, "We must do more than wring our hands." So, I know a lot of those statements are just political, just for aesthetic purposes. I mean, he may truly believe it, but it just seemed like it's the thing to do because you're a franchise. But Matt Nagy talked about it and he said, they usually he said on Monday Night Football, or excuse me, Good Morning Football on Monday, that the Bears are going to put the X's and O's on the back burner. And the virtual 2-hour meetings that they had, instead of X's and O's, was going to be focused on social justice. So I thought that was okay. I just need to make sure that they get back to football like quick.
Think about it though, Shawn. Did they really have a choice? That would have looked really poorly if they would have continued business as usual when the rest of the country is not business as usual.
That's true.
There is a slow, we'll see how much it goes, awakening of what could be a revolution. We'll see how constant people can be with this and realize it's got nothing to do with looting and rioting. It's about now you have to really dig your heels in if you want to see change happen. But it would have looked really bad for any organization to behave as if something wasn't going on. And just to step back and just to not do your regular scheduled things is easy to do. Not to mention you have players that are part of those respective groups that maybe you want to show good faith that you are interested. Because remember, the NFL has a whole initial about social justice they've been trying to roll out for 2 years that they've done a crappy job at, to be honest. So with that being said, to me, it was made sense to do it, because if you didn't, you would have looked bad. So I don't know if I feel it's so heartfelt and it's really seriously sincere, because at the heart of this, when we were talking about Philando Castile and others and things were happening, they didn't do anything. When Black Lives Matter was happening, when Kaepernick took a knee, teams didn't know what to do. But because now it's like in their face that it's real, but it was always there and they knew it was real, they can get on board. So to me, it's not as sincere as people want to make it seem. It's business as usual. You must take a stance at this point.
I agree. And the NFL doesn't want to take have any more backlash toward it, because there's already a big faction of white fans who are upset with the NFL and who stopped watching it. I know a couple of people who are like that. And to have your black demographic to maybe start tuning out now, because if you don't do this and they start tuning out, now you're losing a whole fan base. It's already bad enough that your season may or may not be affected. Your OTAs and some of the things leading up to the regular season have been affected. But if your the support from the black demographic is affected, then there again, now it's in their pocketbooks, and that's something that they definitely don't want, because all the money that they make as an NFL owner, they made going into last year, going into 219, I believe, right before the season started. Because remember, they're a not-for-profit organization.
Right.
If you people don't know that, the NFL is a non-for-profit organization.
Go figure. That sounds preposterous, doesn't it? Preposterous. How can you possibly be a non-for-profit when you can rain money? But
so what they do is they obviously, in case you don't know, so what happens is you split up the money at the end of the year, so the business doesn't make any business. The NFL doesn't make any money per se.
Yes.
But the owner,
say it.
But the owners.
Yes.
So what happened? So they got a $277 million check at the end of the fiscal year.
That seems so like cause driven. I mean, just
a
reason to be a not-for-profit.
Yeah. So they and that's way more than their salary cap. So that's a profit. Obviously everything's covered in their business plan of everything, but $277 million that they received before the 19 season, before the 18 season. And it was that it's money. All right. It's money. But again, a big portion of the white population is not happy with the NFL. If you get a big portion of the black population not happy with the NFL, you start losing more money. I know you get TV money, but jersey money gets jersey and licensing things if those won't get sell at their normal rates,
okay,
that drops as well.
But there's definitely a disproportion when you talk about how the NFL could be affected by what's going on, because there's a clear division in how these things work. So yes, the league is predominantly people of color, predominantly black. And then, obviously there's Latinos in there and some Samoans, whatever. The white I know Samoans. Do what you like. No, I'm just kidding. But
Digital Underground, for those of you who don't know.
Right, if you didn't know, it's Digital Underground. Maya's back because she can't stop singing. But so you have that piece. Then we have to have the argument about how there's fewer coaches, but they're within the coaching ranks. There are people of color that are there, but not at head coaching. That's usually what we focus more on. Right. But when you talk about, you flip that dynamic. You talk about ownership. We got Khan that owns the Jaguars, and I guess Mora is he a minority? I can't figure him out.
No, that dude owns the Falcons.
No. Khan owns the Jacksonville Jaguars. Mora,
Yeah, it's Khan who owns the Jaguars. He usually has a.
Is that the Arabian or the
mustache? He's got like one of those crazy.
Trust me, I peep my minorities when they own stuff, and he stands out. He stands out in the room, like that one right there. No, he stands out in the room. So there's very few minorities that own teams. So that's their part. When you talk about actual fan bases that buy tickets, it isn't necessarily minorities, unless you count women, because women have become more participant in attending games than they have been in the past, as well as purchasing merchandise. There's whole brands, too much pink shit. But anyways, I don't know why I think we want to wear pink just because we're women. Just give me some cute stuff. I ain't got to be pink. Okay, I digress. But anyways, but when it talks how those dollars are generated, and let's be real talk, Shawn, I love my folks, but we are always looking for a deal. So we are bootlegging something. So we're not necessarily buying that NFL license stuff. I'm sorry. I'm just being honest about it. I'm not mad. Give me a jersey for $10. I don't have to have a $50 jersey because that's not me. That's just not me. But that being said, the disparities. So it's interesting from a standpoint of when you upset, it's like, who are you upsetting? Let's be honest. When the issue happened with Kaepernick, real talk, I don't feel that the NFL or the teams gave a damn if black people were upset or not, because you heard the rumblings of black people saying, we're going to stop watching the game. And it was like, you don't have to watch it because we're not really counting your numbers anyways. We just need you to show up and play. Shut up, show up, and play. That's all they wanted. That was it. So the only reason I'm going to stick to this, that the NFL and teams are taking any stance, a hard stance on this, is because nationwide, other people are now involved besides black people. These are potential other fan bases, women, whites, whatever the case may be. So now they've taken notice, because this is how our country is structured. We lead based on what we think the dominant population is doing. And they're seeing white men and white women holding Black Lives Matter signs, protesting, and also stealing stuff from Nike. So they're like, oh, something's going on. We need to, yes, I said it. They're stealing stuff from Nike too.
Yeah, they did.
The looting and rioting was not exclusive
to
any race of people. I want you to know, everybody was like, I'm about to get in on this. It had nothing just to do with black people. Just, I want to put that out there because, that will be the narrative that will be told. But if you're watching the video, that's not the narrative. So the NFL sees this shift in who's watching and what's going on and realize now we do have to take a stance, because it's been taken off the field with Kaepernick, and now it has a social justice, social fan base perspective. So now they're involved. Do I think it's sincere? Absolutely not. And I never will, because it's about dollars.
So how do they go? How do fans, how do African American, how does any American really go and look at? How do we look at the NFL now? Now that we know they're only out for themselves, and the stance that they took when Colin Kaepernick was first protesting, police brutality and such, to now, like you said, it's insincere. So how do we even go about, being fans of the NFL again? Like how can you go about being a fan of the NFL besides like pure sport? How can you ever support the NFL?
I mean, it's like
it is a pure sport. It is a pure sport, and it appeals to the animalistic, the barbaric side of us that we love.
What?
That man, you mean to tell me you didn't love Ronnie Lott, Maya? Come on now, when he knocked Steve Atwater, when they would knock the hell out of people,
all that smashing, bashing, and men bending over, absolutely. I'm sorry, my bad. Yes.
But that's why the NFL knows that they have it. They got us by the short and curlies. Okay, because even though when they do something wrong like that, the fact that we love it is so entrenched in our society. Mm-hmm. We love that game, and still so many of our people play it. Okay, the majority of them play it. You want to support them, and I know you by default support the owners, but that's how you're going to do it. They just got us. You know what? That's a great scam. They got us, nothing more, nothing less. You love that game. They know you love it. They know you're not going to stop watching it, and they got you. Nothing more, nothing less.
Shawn, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, here's the thing. The NFL and the sports industry is a reflection of life. Let's be honest. There are social disparities all throughout our culture. So my thing is, you might as well just move to Antarctica if you really want to be a purist about everything, because there's an issue if you go shop at Walmart, if you go shop at Target, there's all kinds of issues that are socially linked to any of these particular companies or anything that we do. McDonald's, I mean, the list is there. So my thing is that you would have to say, I'm just not going to be involved in anything really social because of the fact there's injustice on every level of something. So do I support the NFL? No. Do I watch the sport of football? Yes. But if the NFL, if something happened, I wouldn't be standing in their corner. I wouldn't. I'd be like, no, you're $1 billion business and you shouldn't be a not-for-profit. That's like churches not paying taxes. Who came up with that racket? But anyways.
That's another story. That's another podcast.
Story. That's a more racket right there. Racket everywhere. But, and Serena ain't swinging it. But with that being said, I'm never going to support the NFL, but I'm going to watch the game because it's like any other sport that I watch. I am about the players getting what they deserve. I do. And if they use their platform like others have done before them, I take no offense to it. I don't expect for any point of time in this country for anybody to truly understand the narrative of Black people. I don't. Because one, as a country, we've done a great job of making sure we silence the narrative of Black people. So you really don't know what our issues are. You don't. You think you know, but you don't. So no, I'm not. Ivan, to answer your question, I'm never going to be pro NFL, any sport. I'm never going to be any really pro team necessarily, but I watch sports. It's a part of what we're doing.
Man, that's tough to. I think I agree.
Wait a minute. Let's throw this in there. Question from John Neal. John has been lighting it up today. Question. Vic Fangio says he doesn't see racism in the NFL. What's our take on that?
See, with Vic Fangio, he's talking about his players. He's a coach. He's one of those guys. And at that point, a lot of times when you're a coach, I don't say you don't really see it because you're literally devoted to film. You know, if you've ever seen a coach, you know coaches, college coaches, NFL coaches, their life is the facility, games, a little bit of time at home to make babies and eat dinner, but then the facility and games because either they got like 3 or 4 kids. Coaches' wives, I know you get 3 or 4 kids. You're at the facility 18 hours a day. But anyway, he's talking from that perspective, you know, as far as the players go, because at that point you don't give a damn if you're white, you're Black, you're Hispanic, you're Samoan. You don't give a damn if you can rush the quarterback, you're in. You know what I mean? There's really not a lot of racism as far as playing goes. Okay, so although some people in Chicago will talk about maybe that is in the quarterback position. But when you have just a quarterback position here in Chicago, that would be the only one. But when it comes to everyone else,
I don't know. I would say from all the stories that you've heard from multiple players, like I'm not going to get into names, but what goes on the field, what goes on in those piles, what's said, you know, during the game, like I'm sure there's racism within the NFL that we just don't see, that they don't allow to see. Like if everybody was mic'd up, if you had everybody mic'd up, what would we hear?
Oh, it's a lot of wrong stuff.
What do we hear?
I don't disagree with you at all, but the bottom line is the NFL, the biggest thing you can do to a person, the worst thing you can do to a person, or the best thing you can do for your team is to get someone out of their game. Okay. And when you make a tackle, you know, because I can tell you some of the crazy things that happened to me in the bottom of the pile. And I don't think they did it to me because I was Black. I don't think they said stuff to me because when you get fired up and you get out of your game and you lose that focus, well, now you're an advantage to the defense, or depending on what side of the ball you're on. Now you're an advantage to the other team. Okay. They still might have. There's going to be racist playing. Okay, don't get me wrong, but I don't think if we're talking from coaches to the players, you know, I think when you just put out there who's going to be the best for you to win, because truth be told, they don't talk about assistant coaches' salaries most of the time. You never know, dude. Those salaries are 6-7 figures. Let's not get it twisted. And if I have this high 6 or 7 figure salary, I'm not going to give a damn who's playing. As far who's out there on the field, as long as they're saving my job and covering my ass. So from that perspective, now amongst the players, maybe not. But when you're talking from a coach to put in the best players on the field, again, we talked about follow the money. If this guy gonna get 20 sacks and help me keep my job and make me get a bigger promotion when I go somewhere else,
you know. It's interesting, Shawn, because I think one of the things we have to think about in sports is there probably racism on the field. I'm sure there is. People have their ideologies and belief systems that they grew up with. It doesn't mean it's probably shifted as they've built relationships with people when you play side by side with somebody. So I think that's possible. I mean, there's even racism, or we might say preference of talent. And white players, if you remember, like coming out of college, remember Wally Serbiak made the comment about he wouldn't be drafted because he was white. Because let's be honest, stereotypes and proof of performance. There are a lot of people who believe in certain positions or certain sports that certain people from certain races are just going to be better at it. Is that racism? That's interesting. Preference, stereotyping, labels. So there's, to me, in professional sports, there's a whole hodgepodge of things going on when we talk about racism. But what we can see with the eye test as fans, clearly we can see there's a level of racism happen from a team aspect of ownership. You have plenty of Black people who've tried to buy teams and have been blocked. We have to have the Rooney rules because the fact of, and people believe that people will legitimately hire someone based on talent. Well, first you have to be given the opportunity for that to even happen. So the Rooney rules are the NFL's equivalent of affirmative action. That's silly. So that tells you right there that we still have to talk about the Rooney rules in this day and age means we haven't crossed that barrier. We haven't made that change, so to speak. So to me, the NFL is a reflection of our society. And I've said this to somebody really quick, history 101. Slavery was in this country for 245 years, 1619 to 1865 when it was abolished. Then we went into Jim Crow, which went from 1865 to 1965. Do you realize we've only been out of segregation for 54 years? Let me ask you this question. What do you think we've learned in 54 years? Because we can use the same bathroom, water fountain, go in the same restaurants and stores, even have kids together. Do you think the fabric of what we are of this country has gone away? No. But you can fool people into thinking it. Just by an eye test. Well, we're all walking together and doing the same stuff, but you see gross disparities socially across the board. So the NFL is a reflection of society. Just those players are making millions of dollars for their disparity. That's all. I'll take it. What?
Well, yeah. Well, there's different levels of it, and I think in some places there's not as much racism, but I think overall, yeah. I mean, there is, and you brought up the great point about the ownership. Remember, the great Walter Payton wanted to buy it when he wanted to buy the team in St. Louis, and they wouldn't let him. And he was heartbroken. He was heartbroken over that. And even at that point, you're the greatest player in the history of the NFL, and they're like, "No, black man, you can't do that." And that hit him hard because I think he might have felt that he crossed that barrier and he could get in. And they said, "You know what? Stay in your place." And that hit him hard. And a real quick story before we got to go to break because I know we got Lauren coming up. Yesterday, speaking of that. Brittney Payton, if you saw, it was posted on social media. She had a situation where obviously the guy didn't know who she was, but she was at a Walgreens going to pick up some prescriptions, she said, for her allergies. And the pharmacists are busy. People coming in, going to the drive-thru, whatever. So she's waiting. And she said the guy got out of the car and started clapping like, "Come on, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up." And then when I guess he saw her in the rearview mirror, you could see and saw she was black. He said he went in his trunk. He pulled out a watermelon and started cackling like a monkey. And Brittney, this is Brittney Payton. So if you follow Brittney Payton on social media, or if you follow Jared Payton, because Jared put it out, he reposted it, retweeted it. You'll see it. And I can guarantee. She said he was in his 40s or 50s. I'm like, I said, you know what? I can almost guarantee you that guy cheered her father on back when he was playing, and now he does that to her daughter.
You do realize that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
You playing, but me liking you as an individual. People get that twisted and assume that because the worst thing you could ever say about anybody is that I'm not a racist because I got a black friend. You sound stupid saying that. Because that doesn't mean because you know people of a certain color that you don't have racist beliefs. And that goes both ways about negativity, about just we're learning a lot about ourselves. And if nothing else, I do believe within sporting settings that we can have a dialogue that most people probably can't have because we'll listen and comment. You know what I mean? We have a meeting point because we do have something we all share in common, which is the love of the sport that we watch, the love of the sport of some people playing. So I believe we're in a unique platform to begin to have a salient conversation about it and do it rationally. The question is, can people do it with an open mind? That's going to be the issue we have. We'll see.
Well, we got to take a break because I'll tell you, I had a conversation that just last night with some of my teammates from college, but we'll talk about that at the end, toward the end of the show. We got to take a quick break, and then the other side of the break, our guy Lauren Cox, the man from the
My favorites.
I know, one of Maya's favorites. So we'll be back, so don't go anywhere, folks. Keep it locked right here. Shawn and Maya in the morning on Sports Zone Chicago.
Quicken Loans presents the Sports Flash, driven by Jeep on 1330 and 95.9 The Zone. grave mistake when repeating a racial slur to ex-tight end DJ Greenlee on the practice field 3 years ago. Former Tigers quarterback Taj Boyd on head coach Dabo Swinney's response.
The most important thing that Coach Swinney said, and what he said, I believe it's sincere. Coach Swinney loved at such a deep level that it's hard for him to sometimes see what everything looks like. But the most important thing is that he takes heed to what is being said.
All 32 NFL teams have been told by Commissioner Roger Goodell to hold training camps at their home facilities this summer because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Most teams stay at their training complexes year-round, but several teams, including Dallas, Pittsburgh, Kansas City, and Buffalo, stage training camp elsewhere. Major League Baseball owners have responded to the Players Association with a 50-game season and prorated salaries. No monthly payments for 90 days, 0% APR for 84 months. Details at Jeep.com. The Sports Flash is driven by Jeep. Chuck Sanders, 1330, 95.9 The Zone.
When you need auto parts, O'ReillyAuto.com is just a few clicks away. We offer convenient options for you to get your parts quickly. Order online and pick up for free at your local O'Reilly Auto Parts store. We'll even bring it out curbside. Or you can have your parts delivered right to your door with free shipping on most orders over $35. Visit O'ReillyAuto.com.
Auto Parts. Jay Farner here, CEO of Rocket Mortgage. Making the right financial decisions has never been more important. When you turn to Rocket Mortgage, we can help guide you to those right decisions now when they matter most. Mortgage rates are near historic lows, so now is a great time to call 8338-ROCKET. And if you need some extra money, a cash-out refinance could give you that financial boost you're looking for. Call today at 8338-ROCKET or go to rocketmortgage.com to learn more.
Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. And MLS number 3030.
Guys, listen, we're back here on Shawn and Maya in the morning. And, man, I'm excited to talk to our next guest.
Mm-hmm.
That's my guy. That's my guy.
That's my guy.
How you gonna be your guy when he's my guy?
That's not
How you gonna be your guy when he's my guy?
That's my guy.
We're fighting. We're gonna fight over Lauren. Yeah, we're fighting.
You'll see why we're fighting over Lauren. If you haven't caught him on the show after this, you'll know why we're fighting over him.
Guys, he is the host of the Lockdown Bears podcast. He's used to work for NBC Sports Chicago. You can find him on Twitter at Cox Sports One, and that's like Fox Sports One with a C. Guys, just welcome to the show, Shawn and Maya, Lauren Cox. Lauren, what's up, buddy? How are you?
I'm doing well, and don't worry, there's plenty of me to go around.
To be sure, I need to be sure because Shawn is greedy, so that's how it is. How you doing, Lauren? I'm
doing well. I'm trying to keep up with everything else going on in the world right now, and it's a difficult time for so many people, and I'm glad we were able to talk some sports in here too, but also have the really important conversations that need to be had right now.
Yes, I do agree.
So your thoughts then? Initially, the NFL came out yesterday with a couple of things where they said that all training camps can be held at their facilities. It doesn't affect us because the Bears are moving out of Bourbonnais back to Lake Forest, which I was very, very upset about. Remember, Maya, we talked about it for like 3 or 4 days. Yeah. Like, dude, shut the hell up already. It's over.
Shawn was like trying to create trauma over it. I'm like, Shawn, you can still go, just not going there. So, yeah.
So I'm still in therapy over that, but my session should be up in a couple of weeks and I'll be good. But then also the fact that they can't have any joint practices, which is another huge thing that teams like to do when you can practice with different teams. Kind of stop beating up your own people and get a different taste of what it is that you're going to be facing in the league.
Yeah, I think there's two sides of it, of course. There's the health side, but there's also just having been away for so long anyway that I think there's a desire for teams to be able to get back into the building, that once they're back in the building, if you were then going to have to leave right away again to go to training camp somewhere else, you haven't had the time for players to rehab necessarily in your team's top-notch facilities. I mean, Bourbonnais and all of it, Nazarene University, I'm sure have very nice facilities, but it's not quite the brand new Hallis Hall facilities that they're renovating the whole thing. So I can see from the NFL standpoint, not only do you feel safer doing it in your own controlled environment, but then also just because you haven't been able to spend that time in your facility yet this off season and go through anything close to normal, I can see why they would want teams to kind of be back in there. But it does affect the Bears in terms of canceling the planned joint practices with the Denver Broncos and Vic Fangio before that preseason game. And we've seen over the last few seasons when the Bears have done those with the Patriots and with the Broncos in recent years, it seems like one way or another, the teams end up exchanging a player in one direction with waivers and cutting down the 90-man roster, that somebody that they saw in those joint practices ends up going to the other team. So a little bit of a missed scouting opportunity, but in the grand scheme of things, I think it's a necessary evil and something that they can live with.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. It just sucks. Like I said, I'm still tripping on the fact that they're leaving Bourbonnais, but now it makes it easier to deal with knowing that everybody is not going to be able to. So the Cowboys aren't going to be in Oxnard, California. They're home away from home. They got to be down in their little, their facilities. Somehow I think those are wonderful. But let's get on to this.
Nobody can, Shawn, right?
Let's get back to the actual football. So we haven't talked in a minute, and there's a lot that I want to talk to. I know Maya wants to ask you, so let's get right to it. Cole Kmet, all right, that's their first draft pick this year. Give me your thoughts on him and what he's going to do to the tight end position now that there's 25 tight ends on the team.
Well, they're down to 9. They're working on their addition.
Okay.
I think the first step was admitting they had a problem, and after the kicker competition last year, we should have expected some kind of glut at another position. So they picked tight end this year. And as far as Cole Kmet goes, I'm hesitant to put expectations too high as a rookie, just because we do see a slower transition for college players going to the NFL. And that doesn't necessarily mean that he's not going to become something greater. It's just given where the Bears stand offensively and where he comes into this offense, Jimmy Graham is going to be the feature tight end. I mean, Matt Nagy absolutely raves about Jimmy Graham. Every opportunity he gets, they feel like he can be what that has been missing at that position. And that's a whole separate argument as to whether we actually think that's true. But with Kmet, he could come in, he can take some of that pressure off and be that number 2 where he's going to block. He's going to be sort of that secondary option where he'll catch some passes, he'll pick up some first downs, but he doesn't have to feel like he needs to be Travis Kelce in this. He doesn't need to be George Kittle just yet. He can be Cole Kmet, and that can be a very solid number 2 for now. And then as Jimmy Graham gets older and wears out his time in Chicago, there's all the potential is there for Kmet as a well-rounded tight end. He's got enough speed to work vertically. He's got great hands. He seems to be able to get open and block, and pretty much has all of the foundational pieces. It's just a matter of how far can he go? How high can he take that skill set?
What's interesting is I think I'm one of the few people that I like the Jimmy Graham pickup. Here's what's strange. When Jimmy Graham was available before he went to Green Bay, I was hoping that the Bears would take a run at him. I often feel like his numbers aren't reflective of the Graham we saw, obviously, in New Orleans. But I don't feel that that's not something that's not possible. I think situations are always important to put in perspective. Like, he went to Seattle. It just didn't pan out there. He was in Green Bay. It just didn't pan out. But I also look at those two teams and what they had going on in the time that he was there. But now I just thought about that, what the Bears have going on. I'm not sure if that's better. But now I just thought, I'm like, oh, man, that's not a good. But I feel like if Jimmy Graham comes into Chicago with a chip on his shoulder and feels like, I still have something, I've got something to prove, he's going to be an upgrade from Bird no matter what anybody tells me. I don't care what anybody says about that. I believe that he can be really viable in that spot, and I don't think people should write him off so quickly. I still think there's something there with him.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we get mixed up in terms of like our expectations and writing him off, right? Like, I don't think people are thinking Jimmy Graham is going to be awful. It's just a matter of how good Jim, like you look back at, you mentioned the Seattle and Green Bay years where he was sort of perceived as being not productive enough, but you look back at the seasons, 600 yards, 900 yards, 520, 636, 447, all with, between 40 and 65 catches. If the Bears could get Jimmy Graham to catch 60 balls for 700 yards and a handful of touchdowns, that'd be great. I mean, that'd be a upgrade over everything they had. And maybe that's not, 1,000 yard, 10 touchdown Jimmy Graham that we saw early in his career in New Orleans. But I don't think it's fair to expect that at, what is he, age 34 now? It'll turn 34 in November. So I think we should be able to expect a pretty decent amount of production. Even his worst seasons over the last year in Green Bay was his least productive, 38 for 447 yards and 3 touchdowns. If he could hit that in Chicago, that would be an upgrade over what we had last year. I think you'd like to see a little bit more than that, but even if at the bare minimum that's what you were able to get, I think that's still a positive for this Bears offense compared to what they were getting before.
Pun intended on a bare minimum, but I agree with you completely. If we can get even that his worst year is what we had last year, and that's with the other 8 tight ends that we had. So what I'm looking at is Jimmy is exactly the scenario that you posed. Jimmy Graham being the bulk, being the workhorse as far as the tight end, but also allowing Cole Kmet to grow and not be burdened with carrying this offense as the number 1 tight end. Now I think he can grow faster. He can develop better. But I also think now you may have, maybe not this season, but maybe next season. Now you're starting to get that that Gronk Aaron Hernandez combination with those guys. You're just going to have to restock it once Jimmy Graham's gone, because once Cole Kmet comes into his own, because watching him on film, the guy's he's awesome. He is one heck of a tight end. And when you have a guy, a cagey veteran like Jimmy Graham, and then you have a rising star in Cole Kmet, is what we're hoping he's going to be. And now you have that 2 tight end set. We've seen how devastating it can be toward defenses, and that's what's going to, I think, be a big part going forward. Maybe not this year as Cole starts to kind of feel his way around the NFL his first year, but definitely next year. I think it's going to be a great 1-2 punch in the tight end department. That's tough for any team to deal with. One is bad enough. Look at Travis Kelce and some of the other tight ends. When you have one, when you got 2 tight ends who are comfortable and can make plays, that's really difficult to cover.
And I think the other aspect that can get overlooked with this is not even Jimmy Graham's production, but just purely his presence, not only in terms of mentorship and leadership for Kmet and the other tight ends on the roster, but offering that threat as an offense. I think that's something that we overlooked last season with the different tight ends that were in the rotation. I mean, Jesper Horsted could catch a pass when it was thrown his way, and Ben Broniker can catch passes when they're thrown his way, but defenses don't have to fear or respect those in the same way that they do for Jimmy Graham. So even if Jimmy Graham isn't catching 75 passes, defenses will have to respect where he is on the field at all times. And so if he can, suck in the linebackers or the safeties a little bit more over the middle, can that leave a little bit more space for Anthony Miller in the slot, or Allen Robinson on the outside, or Tariq Cohen coming out of the backfield? I think that's so much of what this Matt Nagy offense predicates on, and the Andy Reid offense in Kansas City with Travis Kelce, and Doug Peterson's offense in Philadelphia with Zach Ertz, where even if your tight end isn't getting 100 yards this particular game, he is still attacking and stressing the defense in a way that gives all of your other receivers more space to room, and presumably gives your quarterback more time to throw, and has your offense working more effectively all around. So I think Graham will have a ripple effect of benefits that way that aren't even fully measured in his production.
Guys, we're joined by Lauren Cox from the Locked On Bears podcast, talking a little Chicago Bears football right here on Shawn and Maya in the morning on Sports Zone Chicago. Obviously this gets to the main question, Foles and Mitch. I want to hear your thoughts on who you think is going to be the who's going to get the opening day nod. I hope and pray it's Nick Foles, but we'll see. What are your thoughts on the starter opening day?
I'm confident Nick Foles will take over as the Bears this season at some point. Where I'm stuck is how soon, and whether that's by week 1 or whether that's by week 4 or week 8, and where exactly the leash is, because it is an open quarterback competition, as Matt Nagy has described it. And
open.
So you would think, based on the experience that we've seen from Nick Foles over his career, with ups and downs, but some quite high ups in there, you would think that it's only a matter of time before Foles wins a truly open competition. So if it is truly open, like you said, you would think Nick Foles will be the week 1 starting quarterback, unless Trubisky shows something this offseason that he just hasn't through his first 3 seasons. It's possible, but there's not really a clear evidence or a reason as to why all of a sudden now everything would just click. But if it did, great for Mitch and great for the Bears if they can have multiple quarterback options. But I think Nick is a better fit in this Bears offense. He's more consistent. He's not going to be this big, dynamic, explosive downfield quarterback. He may be a little bit more like the Alex Smith type that we saw in Kansas City with Matt Nagy. But that's what this Bears offense needs at this point. When you have a defense like this, when you're building a set of receivers around him and trying to get the running game back to what it needs to be, I think with what we've seen from Mitch over the last few seasons, they just needed somebody to consistently take care of the ball and keep the offense moving. They didn't need Mitch to be a hero all the time. And I think Foles can be that sort of calming, solidifying, think a much better Chase Daniel, where it's a little bit lower, but the floor is high enough that he can get this team where it needs to go with a little help from his friends.
And that's, it's interesting because to me, this is all about having to save face with the Bears. Mitch was never really the right fit, but you know, I always still laugh, Lauren, when I hear people say when they drafted him that he had a higher ceiling than Mahomes or, you know, or Watson. And I was like, how is that possible? They must have been looking at the floor. And I'll never change my thought on that. And we're seeing it more now for the fact of, you know, he just hasn't hit that development stage. But also we're talking about that quarterback in college who had less time at starts than those other quarterbacks that we felt that should have been drafted by the Bears. So I kind of feel it's like this season is that last, we still have to give Mitch at least one last ditch effort before we move to the side. But they finally realize we need to have someone behind him who legitimately can step into that role and doesn't compromise the rest of the season with not being able to win games. But they also needed someone in Nick Foles that was going to be okay walking into that role as a backup opposed to not being a starter, and not put ripples in the water. But at the same time, the rest of the team can look at Foles and be like, if this guy gets put in the game, we feel like we can still win. There's no question marks because he's got a track record of being successful.
And in the moment when it was happening, I questioned why not put more ripples in the water. You know, why settle necessarily for a quarterback that would agree to come in and be a backup? Like, at this point, why do you have to, you know, take a step for Mitch? You know what I mean? It should seem to me that your goal as the general manager and head coach should be to get the best quarterback possible for your team, rather than get a quarterback that is going to allow Mitch to still have a chance. I mean, I understand, like, if you kind of strike out down the list and end up with Nick Foles, absolutely. But, you know, when there were clear upgraded starting quarterbacks available, I didn't feel like, it felt like the Bears made it too much of a priority to appease Mitch or respect Mitch in some way as far as his ability, and not to disrespect the person, but in terms of building a football team and quarterback being so important, doing anything you can to get the best possible quarterback. I think Foles is a good quarterback and a good fit with the offense, but did the Bears do everything they could to upgrade that position as much as possible?
No. And I agree with you. The Bears, to me, function too much on feeling comfortable in their decisions. They're not risk takers, because real talk, when the quarterback market was open, there were better options out there than Mitch. And Mitch is the reason I felt that they got pigeonholed and took Foles. There's two things I see about this. Nagy and his inexperience, and the buy-in is still not high with me with him. He needs too many things to make him feel comfortable, which means he's not that type of head coach at this point in his career that whatever you can give him, he can bake like a cake that's out of this world. He's only good at cupcakes. He can't give you the wedding cake. That's just how he is right now. He needs things that make him feel comfortable with his current skill set. Okay, I guess if you want to win, then you're going to have to dumb it down to your coach that you picked that maybe you shouldn't have picked to make it work. But then on the flip side, you had a quarterback market. You know, I was clamoring for Teddy Bridgewater. And I was a Bridgewater fan when he was in Minnesota because, you know, secretly my side team is the Vikings. Everyone knows that. It's no secret. It's no secret that me and the Vikings get down like that. So with that being said, I was a huge Bridgewater fan when he was in Minnesota. When he got hurt, I was like, no. And a lot of people didn't think he was coming back from injury. He went to the Jets, lackluster, but goes to the Saints, and all of a sudden you're seeing these flashes of Bridgewater that you saw when he was really peaking in Minnesota. The fact that they didn't get him because we had to worry about hurting Mitch's feelings, again, makes me feel like, is this really an organization that's committed to winning? Because they worry too much about people's feelings in the whole scheme of things. And
I know people will poke holes and say, well, financially, okay, Teddy Bridgewater, apparently the Bears are offering him $20 million or whatever. And people say, well, they should have gone after Tom Brady, and maybe money was a factor there. Phillip Rivers. But it seems like this offseason in particular was so rich in quarterback availability in a way that we never see in the NFL. So even if you can cross 5 names off the list and still get quality quarterback options. I mean, we think about Jameis Winston. Again, we can argue how good Jameis Winston is, but when he goes for $1.1 million as a backup after the draft, Andy Dalton becomes available later. I mean, you can nitpick all these different quarterbacks, but there were a lot of different options, and not all of them were super expensive. And all of this is forgetting that Cam Newton is still a free agent quarterback in the NFL right now, and just out there on the market. And again, it's not about the specific quarterbacks; it's about the range of quarterbacks and how many different options. And it felt like the Bears kind of went with one that was most comfortable to them.
It was a safe pickup, Shawn.
You know what? Here's why. Here's why I get it completely. This is so Chicago Bears. Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace. They got to cover their ass, and they know that. And the reason that they didn't get a a Cam Newton or another quarterback, a Tom Brady, is that they've got to win now. They've got the team now to win, and to teach another quarterback a new system takes time. So he's extremely familiar with this system. He's won a Super Bowl in the system, so he can run the system. And time is ticking very quickly for Matt Nagy and especially for Ryan Pace. And had you got another quarterback, Cam Newton, Teddy Bridgewater, someone else, and he still needs to learn that system, now you're still kind of putting this on hold, but the defense is ready now. And their head could have been on the chopping block if we didn't have a good season. So say Mitch gets to start, and then the new quarterback that you have, is just not up to speed yet because it takes time. It takes time to learn a new system. And I don't think they were afforded that luxury, or they felt that they didn't have that luxury, and they wanted someone in there if Mitch doesn't play, or that their backup can come in and he can win now because they've seen it with this guy. I agree with you that there was a hell of a lot more talented quarterbacks. I love Cam. I think he'd be an awesome addition to the Bears on the lakefront. But in retrospect, for someone not needing, and now look how smart that is, because with the shortened season, without getting actual reps, because we can do Zoom all day with my players and tell you this at 12 yards or 16 yards, but until you get out there and you're throwing to these guys and you're actually practicing, that's a whole nother story. They don't have that anymore due to this pandemic, and I think a guy who's extremely familiar with the system is a guy that's why they chose him, because of his familiarity. And you're right, they did play it safe because their asses are on the line. Keep it real.
But their asses are on the line because of Mitch.
Yes.
Real talk. Yes. You made this really bad choice. And you've been laughed at and pointed at, like you looked over two of the best options who are thriving, who have made playoff appearances. So they made a bad choice. So I get who you put behind Mitch is important, but here's my thing. Foles, and I like Nick Foles, but he's still just a safety net. For everybody who was out there, I'm going to tell you, what I didn't want was head cases. So I wasn't taking Cam Newton. I don't have time for him and his babushka and him not acting right. I ain't got time for that. So and he just hadn't shown me what I needed from him. If I would have had Cam from 2 or 3 seasons ago, I'm on board with that. But what the Bears couldn't afford to take in was something that was troubled. And Cam was so troubled. Think about this from a market standpoint. There's no takers. What does that tell you about him? So 1, I don't want any head cases. He needs to be worked on. 2, Jameis Winston had too many interceptions and other things going on. So to me, he wasn't the right fit because he just, to me, isn't where he should be at developmentally either. Also, his maturity, I don't care for that either. So I take those 2 off the table. And FYI, for everybody who's going to get upset with me, it has nothing to do with them being black. I can say this. So, because I was all about Teddy Bridgewater. So just pull your panties out a bunch, and because people get in their feelings, because they think that's the reason there's no black quarterbacks in Chicago. That's not it. I'm looking purely at what you bring to the table based on this team really should be able to do better than what they do. So what I was okay with, Bridgewater, Rivers, I would have loved Rivers. Rivers to me was the get me over. Yep. If you watch what the Chargers have done the last couple seasons, their lack of going further, especially last season, to me, it wasn't Rivers. He just didn't have a lot around them, and there was a lot of dissension in the coaching ranks. You know what I mean? So to me, it wasn't about Phillip Rivers. I was like, if you give me Rivers, I think all of a sudden we've taken a big step forward. Not to mention, I really felt that would be a big development point for Mitch. Not that I want anything to do with Mitch beyond what we're doing, but if you wanted to give him some type of coaching, mentorship, to me, Phillip Rivers was that guy to consider for that. So I was hoping they would go after Rivers. Honestly, I would take Rivers before I would take Foles. And I like Nick Foles, but I'd rather have Rivers. So, you know what? I don't know that getting Nick Foles. Here's my thing. If Foles, let me ask this question to you, Lauren. If the Bears don't do better than last season, if they don't make the playoffs, let's say Mitch gets benched because he's injured, something happens, or he's just not playing right, and then Foles takes over the reins. Okay, so there's an expectation, I'm assuming, from the Bears organization that this guy should be able to keep the ball moving. We shouldn't take any steps back because Nagy has a guy who knows his system. If the Bears don't do better, make the playoffs, go farther into the playoffs, does it mean it's time to scrap this whole organization from a coaching standpoint and look a different direction?
I think it depends on how bad they do, because obviously if they win 4 or 5 games, they're getting rid of all that and trying to fix it from the ground up. But if it's 8-8 again, or even 9-7, but still miss the playoffs, I don't know. I think it depends on how that 8 and 9-7 go, because if it ever felt like last year, even as everything was kind of hitting the fan, it didn't feel like that the whole organization was crumbling from like a team chemistry and a building standpoint. They just weren't very good. And so I think there's some patience and some appetite in ownership to say, if it feels like the Bears are still on the right track and go 8-8, 9-7, like if you could still kind of point to, well, one or two little things go different here, or, somebody got hurt, like injuries were a problem, or if there was something that is I don't want to say a justifiable excuse, but something that ownership can kind of live with as an excuse, even if it is an excuse and maybe not even a justifiable one. I can see them continuing this and feeling like, okay, there's still momentum. There's still a positive direction for this organization, and that they don't want to constantly be shaking it up. I know, it'll be Matt Nagy's third season. Ryan Pace has already gotten 2 head coach decisions, so I can understand he's had a little bit of a longer leash, but Matt Nagy hasn't. And I know George McCaskey has talked in the past about not wanting to be an organization that fires coaches super quickly and turns into some of the, Cleveland Brown level carousels that we've seen around the NFL. That, again, it almost becomes what's comfortable. They're more comfortable being 8-8, 9-7, rather than firing everybody again and going through the whole process again of discomfort. If if the 8-8, 9-7 isn't too bad, you're not a laughing stock organization at that point. So it does seem like prioritizing winning first and above everything else isn't always the case around here.
Guys, we're joined by Lauren Cox from the Locked On Bears podcast. We got him for a couple minutes. Right here on Shawn and Maya in the morning on Sports Zone Chicago. So, Lauren, last question, and switch gears a little bit. Let's go to the other side of the ball. Give me your thoughts on what a difference Robert Quinn is going to make, a bona fide pass rusher opposite a super bona fide pass rusher.
Yeah, that's about the only way you can differentiate the two of them, because Quinn was one of the best pass rushers in the NFL last season, and I think it's huge. I mean, you can't overstate it, and I think it's especially important with the decisions they've ultimately made in the secondary. I have some concerns about downgrades at safety and cornerback, but being able to upgrade your pass rusher opposite Khalil Mack, it makes Mack better, it makes Keem Hicks better, it makes Eddie Goldman better, it makes pretty much everybody else in that front seven better, and as a result, with a better front seven, the back end will have less time they need to cover opposing receivers, and we'll have quarterbacks forcing throws a little bit more quickly and be able to, give somebody like Jalen Johnson, if he's the starter, you can't pick on the rookie on the outside as much when you have these kind of pass rushers coming after you. Or if for whatever reason Tashawn Gibson at safety with Eddie Jackson isn't as good as the Bears, any kind of weakness they can find in the secondary, offenses will attack. And so having a pass rusher like Robert Quinn to be able to upgrade from a pass rush what they had from Leonard Floyd, I think will be a huge difference maker. I don't care that Quinn might not be as good against the run, might not be able to drop back in coverage the way Leonard Floyd did. Pass rush is king, and I think it makes Chuck Pagano's job a lot easier. And imagine being able to blitz Danny Trevathan and Roquan Smith with those guys. I mean, it's the same kind of thing we talk about with offense, and you can never have too many good receivers, and you can never have too many weapons for your offensive mastermind. I think Chuck Pagano's going to be able to do some fun things with these pass rushers that we haven't quite seen in a while with two guys like this in Chicago.
Guys, he's Lauren Cox. That's why he's one of the best, man, in the business. Guys, do me a favor. Hey, Lauren, do us a favor. Let everyone know where they can find you and your work online.
Yeah, it says on the screen right now, just below me right here. It says
it does.
At Cox Sports 1. You can hear me every day on the Locked On Bears podcast, and right for USA Today's Bears Wire, part of the sports media group as well. And I'm on the radio in Wisconsin too, but that's not so much Bears talk. So,
sorry.
Double dipping. It's okay because we like you, so we're gonna let that go.
You double dip the chip.
I live in the wrong state.
Hey, great stuff, man. I appreciate it. I love talking. We love talking football with you. You're one of our favorites, man. So, again, we appreciate the time this morning, and bear the freak down, baby. Bear the freak down.
Anytime, guys. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks.
All right, now. Guys, that was Lauren Cox from the Locked On Bears podcast, and I forgot he wrote for the Daily Wire as well, USA Today, with Alyssa Barbieri and those guys. I reached out to Alyssa last week, and she said this week's going to be her last week of school, teaching her kids and everything, so she'll be able to come on and talk, because she was a contributor earlier, but yeah, he writes for the Bears Wire for USA Today as well. So great stuff. And dude, we have like 3 or 4 really, really good Bears people, and we're fortunate, and he's one of them. And he's also a contributor to Sports Zone Chicago with the Locked On Bears podcast as well. So you can hear him on Sports Zone Chicago. Definitely you'll hear it throughout the football season coming up. But listen, we got to take a quick break, and on the other side of the break, we're going to finish up the show So don't go anywhere, folks. We have more sports conversation. Keep it locked right here. Shawn and Maya in the morning on Sports Zone Chicago.
Quicken Loans presents the Sports Flash, driven by Jeep on 1330 and 95.9 The Zone. Clemson assistant Danny Pearman says he made a grave mistake when repeating a racial slur to ex-tight end DJ Greenlee on the practice field 3 years ago. Former Tigers quarterback Taj Boyd on head coach Dabo Swinney's response.
The most important thing that Coach Swinney said, and what he said, I believe it's sincere. Coach Swinney loved at such a deep level that it's hard for him to sometimes see what everything looks like. But the most important thing is that he takes heed to what is being said.
All 32 NFL teams have been told by Commissioner Roger Goodell to hold training camps at their home facilities this summer because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Most teams stay at their training complexes year-round, but several teams, including Dallas, Pittsburgh, Kansas City, and Buffalo, stage training camp elsewhere. Major League Baseball owners have responded to the Players Association with a 50-game season and prorated salaries. No monthly payments for 90 days, 0% APR for 84 months. Details at Jeep.com. The Sports Flash is driven by Jeep. Chuck Sanders, 1330, 95.9 The Zone. When you need auto parts, O'ReillyAuto.com is just a few clicks away. We offer convenient options for you to get your parts quickly. Order online and pick up for free at your local O'Reilly Auto Parts store. We'll even bring it out curbside. Or you can have your parts delivered right to your door with free shipping on most orders over $35. Visit O'ReillyAuto.com.
Auto Parts. Jay Farner here, CEO of Rocket Mortgage. Making the right financial decisions has never been more important. When you turn to Rocket Mortgage, we can help guide you to those right decisions now when they matter most. Mortgage rates are near historic lows, so now is a great time to call 8338-ROCKET. And if you need some extra money, a cash-out refinance could give you that financial boost you're looking for. Call today at 8338-ROCKET or go to rocketmortgage.com to learn more.
Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLS number 3030.
Hey guys, we're back here on Shawn and Maya in the morning on Sports Zone Chicago. We are guys. We have crazy. We love to have fun, and we're just having some little fun in a little chat room. Me and Maya. He's mine. He's mine. He's mine. He's mine.
The boy is mine. I'm Brandy, and you Monica. No, I'm just kidding.
Hold on, player.
Oh man. You know, I love. Okay, it's in the Sports Flash. And we're talking about the situation with Dabo Swinney, and look. I'm gonna say something. What do you expect from somebody named Dabo?
Come on. You know, it's
him to be socially conscious? No,
he's about that money.
I'm gonna tell you something. Here would be an interesting thing that should start. Just like we talked, there should be NCAA programs to prepare players from that transition to the NFL, but also how to manage what they do in college, because it's an overwhelming experience. Like for a lot of these players, you become a star in college, depending upon what school you're at. But even if you're at a smaller school, if you're an athlete, people tend to know you. That narrative and conversation about understanding who you are should begin, but also starting to educate other players about, look, you may be friends with so-and-so who may tell you it's okay to drop the N-word or whatever the case may be, but here's some things that other people may not be okay with because they don't know you. You don't know where they're at with their social consciousness. Using slurs, like I'm going to say the word, everybody, so calm down. Don't use words like faggot or gay or things like that, because we are now in a society where this is not acceptable. You know what I mean? So start having those conversations with athletes in college before they matriculate to the pros. On the same time, from a pro level, sit down with your coaches at this point and start to teach them about racial sensitivity, because apparently they don't get it. Just because you may hear your player use something doesn't mean that if you don't look like them, it's okay for you to say it. I'm not sure why that memo is lost on people. I don't care what I say about Black people. Just because you and I are cool doesn't mean you should attempt to repeat it, because that might offend somebody who isn't within our respective circle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're not in the. It's like when you're talking family. Like we could talk about our family members, but God forbid someone else talk about it, and all hell breaks loose. And that's just exactly the way that is. So why this is still done, I have no idea. But again, people just feel way too comfortable. And the problem is, and I was telling you about, we had a call yesterday with some of my college buddies. One of them is a white guy who's a white corrections officer. And one of the things that we were saying was like, you know what, the request we have of you, because he's the one who actually reached out to us. Mm-hmm. He said, I want to talk about it, which I thought was cool. He said, obviously I reached out to you because of the respect I have for you. And we're like, you know what, the one thing you can do for us, is whenever you're at a situation, you're at a blue party, with some of the people that you work with and other people in law enforcement, or just any of your friends that you grew up with, because he lives in Massachusetts, so that's a red state. And you'll say, and people use terms that are offensive, is to shut it down. If you're
down.
Yes, just like Public Enemy, just shut it down. And if if this is what you're asking us, this is what we're doing. And that's what coaches and players got to do, with people outside of their group. I know these are your boys, and sometimes coaches, but they still just can't. You're not allowed, period. End of story. You're not allowed.
And that's the thing, that one of the things that someone asked a question like, what can I do? It's a white person who's very invested. I mean, I've known him for several years, and he's always been a very open-minded, culturally balanced person from how I've known him. And he's like, very much like, what can I do to make a difference? And what you just said, Shawn, is exactly what I've told people. I said, when you start to hear someone say something that is inappropriate or might be flawed in thinking, challenge him on that thought, not in a confrontational way. Be like, man, that's not a nice thing to say. Someone might be offended by that because of this. Now, maybe you don't think it's offensive because you may know people that might be okay with it. But what 1 or 2 or 3 or 10 people think about something doesn't mean a million other people are going to agree with it. You know what I mean? So I think it's imperative that people in respective groups correct each other. For instance, if I try to correct a white person about something I think is inappropriate, it's instantly going to be confrontational because they're looking at me as being offended and not as me trying to share with them, like, that's not the right thing to say, unless you have a good relationship with somebody and you can have that conversation. But outside of respective circles of friends, it's hard to get people to understand because they instantly go on the defense to what your response is to what they say. So I always say, check your group. Black people, check your black people. White people, check your white people. And then we can come together and talk about it because everybody's been put in check. That's how this works.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough because what are you, the racial police now? Racially sensitive police now? You know what I mean? There's a lot. You're going to have people. There's going to be pushback. There's going to be, confrontation when you do check somebody, because 1, they don't want to be checked. 2, because they know they're wrong. Because they know they're wrong.
Check yourself before you wreck yourself.
I'm saying.
I mean, but I'm serious, and I do. I mean, in my job, we are very open with talking about stuff. And I've had to, there was an older person I was working with who said, I don't get what's going on. And she goes, people say Black Lives Matters, but all lives matter. I said, pump your brakes.
Slow the freak down.
No, well, we're so cool. And I said, here's what's wrong with what you just said. When people say Black Lives Matter, they're not discounting other people's lives. They're speaking... They are speaking to a direct, there's something else going on people can't see. They're speaking directly to an issue of how Black lives are being impacted by violence. And they're saying our lives matter. We deserve better treatment. We're not disregarding anybody else. I said, and if you can't wrap your mind around this, it's no different. When the Me Too movement came out, it was about women. Me too. I matter as a woman. I said, it doesn't mean that as a male, you don't matter. But in this particular conversation, in the vein of what we're talking about, this is about women. And she looked at me like, I said, so don't think when you say Black Lives Matter that I'm saying nobody else matters. Now, when I say Black Girls Rock, I might mean that. I'm just kidding. I'm totally just kidding. But it's interesting how people don't, and she's she's in her 60s, so
that's a different time, different era.
Different time. And we get to we really have some great conversations. She's like, Maya, I didn't think of it. And I don't, by no means, and I mean this wholeheartedly, I do not think she's a racist in any way, shape, or form. I don't. But I think just the way she was raised and just how things were, she's not immersed in society active like that. So when you help someone to cross a bridge that they don't understand, it's good. So I think it's great that your friend reached out to you. You should go to your friends, and hopefully you got good friends. So you guys are good friends. But you might have the wrong set of friends that might give you the wrong instructions, like Ricky Cognito. Richie, he told him, oh yeah, you could drop the N-word, and then he said it and got caught up. No, I'm just kidding. So you got to make sure that the people that you're using as your reference point are good people. That's the key thing. If you're trying to be more racially or culturally conscious, consult the people that you really feel like got it together. Not Ray Ray and them. That may not be a good idea. Not against Ray Ray and them, because they got some other information that might be pertinent. But if you're trying to be socially balanced, talking to Ray Ray may not be a good idea. Love you, Ray Ray.
Ray Ray Pookie now.
Love you. They got your back. So
yeah, when it got to go down a certain way, Ray Ray and them got your back.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Everybody has a different role or different circle they move in. You know what I mean? So
And if
just
you're fortunate, you have a couple of different circles
and
that
you know,
you
and that's
can
the
get
key
in and
thing.
out of.
Have a couple different circles, know your circles, and those are the people you go to when you need certain things. So just know your circles. That's what it comes down to.
That's it. Well, listen, we got to finish. We got about 20 minutes left in the show,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the things I want to talk about is the NBA. You know, we're missing the NBA a lot right now because we'd be in the finals, right?
You know what's
right
weird
about
is
now.
I don't miss it. Is that bad to say? I don't miss it.
No, it's not bad.
I don't miss it.
I mean, it's a society, but me personally, I'm with it. You know, I'm yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing it. There aren't a lot of stars now that I like. Even when Kobe was around, God rest his soul. Like I still love watching the NBA because of Kobe.
Yes.
Because I know he dropped 50 or 60, or he'd pull his shirt over the side and be, and that's that Kobe scowl. There aren't a lot of athletes like that now in the NBA who move me like that. So I mean, I still love the NBA. It's just I'm not as into it as I was before. I'm not saying there's not a lot of stars because there are plenty of stars. There's not a lot of stars that I connect with right now. That's all.
You know what it is? You love the NBA. You're not in love with the NBA.
Right. Not like I was in love with it before. I fell out of love.
And there are two different things. Being in love with something, there's a level of passion and devotion and commitment that's different than just loving something. Like, I love it, but I'm not like I'm in love with baseball.
Yeah.
I love the NBA.
So Adam Silver, they came out. The target date for the NBA is July 31st to resume the season. Owners are expected to approve the Orlando plan. So it's going to be one big round robin place down in Orlando. Everybody's in Orlando. They have the facilities, they have the hotels and things like that. So that's, Shams Charania yesterday tweeted out that NBA Commissioner Adam Silver and the league officially office informed the Board of Governors that July 31st is their target date. So, there won't be fans, but there'll be there'll be basketball. Again, the league and its players still have to agree on the details, but that's what they're targeting right now. And it'll be good. I wouldn't mind seeing the NBA again, but at that point, like at this part of the season, like my baseball fixes, like I'm jonesing, like I'm fiending, like I play some Jodeci for me. I'm fiending.
Cue it up. I can't leave you alone.
I'm saying I need that right now. I need, and especially with a shortened season and every White Sox win matters. Come on, you see them. Oh,
man. I mean, I'm gonna have to, see if the Depot store will open. Because that whole 35th and Shields line they popped out. That's hot. The black and white line. Did you see that?
No.
Right before all this happened, like before when the season was supposed to kick off, they have something called the 35th and Shield line. It's all black, so it's kind of I can't believe you didn't see it.
I can't either. Now I got to go Google it.
Yeah, you got to Google it. I'm like, I have to see if you probably can get it online too. I didn't think about it. I have to get some stuff, But it's going to be such a different experience with people not being able to be part of the game. But real talk. Most people who were just watching it on TV, the fans' only purpose was to fill the seats and to create the ambiance. You know what I mean? I think the play will be different for the players because there'll be nobody there. And I do believe the absence of the fans, like the booing, the cheering, I don't care if you even pipe in, sound, that's gonna, I still feel, affect the way they play. You know what I mean? The intensity is gone. You can, when they're playing defense, and you don't hear people clapping and stomping, don't even play it because it seems like unless you just totally change the track you're playing. So to me, I feel we'll watch the games and it might be interesting, but I think for the players, it's going to be different. And I wonder how that's going to affect their overall performance.
To me, it sounds like, or seems like it's going to be like a scrimmage, like a practice scrimmage, an inter-squad scrimmage, but because the fan participation is huge, especially for many teams. They rely on the crowd, they rely on the noise, they rely on the chaos, they rely on the timeouts, and the place is bedlam is just going up. And timeout, all right, let's walk over, and you can hear the security guard talking on the phone. That's going to be a whole different thing. Like, I'm gonna bring the milk home. I told you, I'm gonna bring it home. You know what I mean?
But my thing is too, like, do you announce their names like you do in the intro? Like, there's people there. Now, mind you, that is also for TV. That people, but my thing is maybe they should actually create something more interactive that is just for TV. You know what I mean? Since we're watching it on TV or streaming it online, or whatever, since there's nobody in the seats, you announcing to an empty arena is weird. So maybe they should create intros for the players that they stream it on TV and then they cut, the players are on the floor and they're ready to go. Now, mind you, Do I know? Does that affect the players? Because part of you the starting lineup, like you the starter, and nobody clapping. Anyways, I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
but
no, seriously, that's cool to be called when you're a starter and you get to call out. And I know after a while it might seem okay, it's no big deal, but it's pretty cool when you got 18 to 20,000 people. The lights are down and they call your name. And they call you get fired up.
They're like so and so, and it's crickets. I mean, they can play a applause trap. They can play like the crowd's cheering. They can play that, but there's still an absence of people. So I mean, for players, they're gonna have to mentally prepare themselves for people are watching you from afar. You can't see the social media stuff. It's just the energy will be different for them. I think it'll be a little different for us just watching it, but I think we'll still be fine with it. So, they got to come back and finish the season. And it's unfortunate it's like this, but if this is how it has to be done, 2020 will be the year that will never be forgotten. 2020 has revealed a lot about a lot of things. Let's put it that way. As they say, 2020 is hindsight. It's been about a lot of things. It's been hindsight, so to speak. So different experience for them. I do believe this is the safest way to do it, having one location. I will say what's interesting is to not consider one location, so which means you have one destination where you'd play the games, or two maybe, like this destination's for the East, this is for the West, this is the final game. You know what I'm saying? Right. So 3 different places. If you wanted to include fans, I would say you would also maybe limit the amount of people you allow in the building. But here's the part that's hard. It's like you're not going to temperature check everybody. That's what I'm saying. And if people are sitting in the seats with like masks
on,
that would be funny as all get out.
Because I know this is kind of off. This is the way my mind thinks. Because there's going to be that one dude who's like, oh damn it! As he takes a chug of beer with the mask on.
Here's the thing though: should you be selling alcohol at a event that has restrictions on it? Because the minute people get a little tipsy, they're like, I ain't wearing this mask, and they take it off. But here's the thing: if the mask part are important, what the NBA should do, okay, they picked July 31st, which I think is a good day, because if we're going to see, because most states are loosely open at this point, within 2 weeks, we should start to see if there's going to be another peak in COVID. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So if we see a peak, because we're in June, if we see a peak in 2 weeks, then they could be like, we're sticking with this format. If by the end of June, we see that the curve is really flattened and there is no secondary kind of round of it, then they can maybe reconsider bringing in people, but smaller numbers. So it's where maybe you would have sold 20,000, I'm just picking a number, seats, maybe you only do 10. You know what I mean?
I was going to say, what if they just section off certain areas? So like you have one section that has fans, like let's say right behind home plate, for instance. You have that area, right that front of the grandstand, right on the field, and then you skip a section to the left and the right, and then you add those. So there'll be a limited amount of fans, but the distance would be, you'd still be social distancing in a sense.
The only issue is how do you know? So say me and the family of 5 go to the game. Mm-hmm. I don't need to be distanced from them, but then I need other people to be distanced from my family. So right. How do you set up that spacing? Because groups come in 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 10. Because if we all live in the same household, how us Mexicans are. We have a lot of people in the household, and I can say that because I'm half Mexican. And
preface everything. I can say that.
I can say that because I'm half Mexican, and I had 7 people in an apartment, so it's okay. But if we all go to the game, and we're all cool, you know what I mean? We don't have the virus, but then everybody else, you know what I mean? Like you can't sell only 2 tickets together, and then 3 seats down. It's going to be a difficult thing, and I want to see how they navigate this because of that situation, the size of the groups is going to vary.
But see, that's why I think they're like no fans. Because then you take away having to worry about, mind you, it can also be the same mindset of if you choose, you can give people a choice. See, this is where you can get back to the American spirit. You can give people a choice to attend the game. And if you get COVID, that's on you because you came to the game. That is a choice. You know what I'm saying? So you come at your own risk. If you come and you get it, sorry, you knew that obviously it was going to be a risk that you were taking. So with that being said, that's always one approach. But then where they have to draw that line is that if you're asking people to work, so for instance, you may choose to not do concessions. You may not sell alcohol. You may say this is purely you attend the game. You can watch and go pee. That's really it. I mean, that could be the whole extent of it. Seriously, if you don't make people wear masks, because then you're not having to worry about any kind of workers necessarily. You know what I'm saying? Because then you're like your Andy Frame people can like wear masks, you know, to see people and wear gloves and stuff like that.
Like we did back in the day.
Right.
Gloves.
And then you just kind of deal with that thing, but you come to the game at your own risk. But I think the selling of concession piece might be where you don't necessarily want to cross that line. Granted, that's money, but that's if you want
big time money.
And clearly you have a separation from the whole situation where it's, you know, the staff that's running the team and then fans. Because then the fans, for instance, you wouldn't sit a fan, you'd have a whole, like maybe 10, 15 rows where there's nobody sitting from the floor. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So you keep that distance. Like, so that whole first, like maybe 10 rows, there's nobody sitting in it, and you make people sit above that. It'll look weird.
Yeah.
It'll look weird, but you're keeping a distance so no one gets those special seats, those floor seats. Those are gone.
You know, at this point, I just feel like I'm not saying the hell with the fans, but like, you know, why are we worried about the fans? Aren't they trying to get these seasons done so that you don't have a gap, you know, in the timeline of your league? Like, isn't the most important thing to get the games done so you have it in the crown and get on to the next season? So like when it's, you know, if it becomes a bigger issue with, do we have fans or not? Are we going to have crowd noise? Are you going to pump in fake crowd noise? Or what are you going to do? I feel like that's it's an argument that's going in a circle, and you know, a decision just needs to be made. And for
They said no fans.
Nothing.
Yeah, they said no fans. They've already made the decision. I'm like saying if they wanted to entertain it, because they do technically have more than a month, almost 2 months to see what happens with the virus, to see if you want to reintroduce the idea. But they've already said no fans.
No fans.
No fans.
I wouldn't even want to reintroduce the idea. Like you said, it could spike. And what if you just don't know? We don't have COVID testing everywhere. Are they going to test? You know, would they be able to test the fans at the stadium? No.
Nope.
You know, you wouldn't be able to. You wouldn't know if somebody had it or not. So it's like, I'm glad they did. I'm glad it's no fans. Get the season's over with, so we can move on.
They're minimizing the risk, and I get it, because they already are taking the risk of restarting the season. Because guess what? The person who is the equipment manager could be exposed to COVID when they go home. The trainer, even within the organization themselves, the risk is still there. They're trying to manage at least if I take your temperature, you know, you don't have symptoms. God forbid that you're asymptomatic. So they're already trying to minimize their risk by just dealing with essential employees to have the game run. It's really what they're probably doing at this point. Only essential people we need to make this happen are going to be present, and those people probably will be tested, because you can do a rapid test, which is not as conclusive. It can say you're negative, but you could still be positive depending upon when you were exposed. But at least they can say you don't have any symptoms, you have no temperature, and the current test says no. So we feel safe that you're appropriate to be here. Because God forbid if they start quarantining people, like they might tell the players, once we get back in action, quarantine, you've been tested, you're negative. I'm telling you, this is really complicated and trying to figure out how not to have another outbreak happen between players.
Guys,
also,
this just came across the wire. Adrian Wojnarowski, and he's pretty much the authority on NBA news. He said the NBA's back. So the NBA is inviting 22 teams to Orlando, 13 Western Conference, 9 Eastern Conference, 8 regular season games per team, play in for the 8th seed. Starting July 31st, October 12th. The vote tomorrow is to ratify it, and it looks like it's going to be a go. So we got to wait for the vote tomorrow. But I think I'll, you know.
So have they remedied what their pay situation is? Do they know what they're paying people, or are they going to ratify this and say we're going this route, and then the NBA PA comes back and says, well, "Hold up, are you paying full contract?"
That's all the information I have from Adrian Wojnarowski. I'm sure more will come up later, but yeah, the pay is going to be an issue, because that could set the precedent on what baseball does. May not, may baseball say, hey, that's basketball, this is baseball, but it could be it could lead to a forecasting of how baseball is going to pay their players or whatnot. So the NBA looks like, withstanding one vote withstanding, it looks like the NBA is really, really, really close to being back.
Well, in regards to the umbrella organization saying we're ready to go. Now we ain't talked We ain't talked money yet. So they put the proposal on the table. Now the players can accept it and say this works, but they still actually have some time to argue about this if you think about it.
Because it would be July 31st, so you have about 2 months.
Yeah,
a little less than 2 months.
They still have some time to argue.
Does that mean that after all this, the Bulls still have a chance to make the playoffs? After all this, the Bulls still have a chance?
Tell me there's still a chance. I hope not.
Are we going to see?
Why the Hawks got in the playoffs that way?
What if Jim Boylan gets into the playoffs?
And kicked him a deep run. What does Arturas Karnisovas do then?
I would go nuts. I would lose my mind. I'd be like, no way.
Because here's the problem with this. If they play disorganized and they have practiced together they've been off too long, they going to look like an and-1 team on the floor, which actually that might be better than them. So let me take that back. They're not prepared. So I don't want the Bulls in the playoffs because I don't want to be embarrassed. Because I don't really have a side team in the NBA, so I'm not trying to be embarrassed. Just go home. Go home. Go home. Sit at home. I don't want to be embarrassed. I really don't.
I hear you. At least we could say the Bulls made the playoffs. Like the Hawks. The Hawks made the playoffs. Hawks are in.
And right by that is an asterisk that says only because the NBA season was reduced due to COVID-19.
True, but they'll still say playoff. They most made the playoffs last year.
You know what? That's not job security for anybody because we know why they made the playoffs, not because they were good, by the way. So hence, changes need to be coming.
Yeah, they do. Maya, do you believe the 2 hours is come and gone?
Yes, I kind of do, but it's been a good 2 hours.
It was a real good 2 hours, guys. I want to thank our guest Lauren Cox from the Lockdown Bears podcast as well. He writes for the Daily Wire of USA, Bears Wire on USA Today. Thanks for calling in. You made it a phenomenal show, and we appreciate your time. It was fun. It was fun. We got a lot covered, and it was good. And we're learning this new system, our virtual studio, and we're getting better and better. Learning more things by the day.
Every day.
To add, so it looks good. I love it.
Toot toot.
Well, listen, guys, we will see you on Friday. We are going to take a 46-hour break.
Mm-hmm.
So for my Puerto Rican Swiss Army knife, Ivan Vargas.
See you guys.
And my lovely co-host, who's not in absentia, she's in virtuality.
Oh, voilà, mon amis. Tout à orders.
Guys, I'm your boy, the Superback Sean Sierra. We're taking a 46-hour break. We'll see you on Friday. Until then, I got 2 words for you, folks.
Deuces.
Superback out.